The Mexico City Grand Prix is at such a unique track. Let's talk about round 20 of the 2023 Formula One Championship. The race takes place at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez circuit, and it is named after two brothers, Ricardo and Pedro Rodriguez. They both sadly lost their lives in motorsport, but they were regarded as Mexico's first motorsport superstars. They really put motorsport on the map in Mexico. At the time, their father was actually an advisor to the Mexican president, and he said, hey, why don't we build a racetrack in Mexico City? Within a year, the racetrack was born. First F1 championship race was held here in 1963. It's got 71 laps. The lap length is 4.304 kilometers, 17 turns going clockwise, and 3 DRS zones. So what's really unique about this track? Well, it really is the fact that it sits at over 2,000 meters above sea level. This causes the air density to be lower, around 20 to 25% than sea level. High altitude pretty much affects everything on a race weekend. The air becomes thinner, and we also get about a 25% reduction in oxygen too. Air impacts the people at the track, the aerodynamics, the braking, power unit, cooling, to name a few. So because of the very thin air, there are less air particles for the drivers to drive through. It means that the drag on the cars are lower. On the straights here, you'll see that the top speeds do get very high. And Valtteri Bottas knows all about that because he actually holds the speed track record for an F1 race. 2016 Williams, he reached top speeds of 231.46 miles per hour. That was on the main straight, and he also holds the record for being the first driver to break 230 miles per hour in a Grand Prix. Now let's talk about the flip side, because less air particles also mean that there's less air pushing the cars to the ground, meaning about a 25% reduction in downforce. What happens in Mexico is slightly unusual. Even though it's a shorter track, it does have what some would call a disproportionately longer straight. Despite the straights, the cars will use a Monaco style rear wing, so that bigger wing, to create more downforce. But because of the lack of air density, the drag is reduced, so that actually creates speeds as, say, what the Monza wing would, you know, that skinnier wing. Simply put, a bigger wing can be used without the penalty of drag creating those high speeds. I just find it so interesting how air can have such a huge impact and create such challenges, and that's also in the cooling as well. So with less air particles, it actually means that less air is being ran through those radiators, those ducts, those intakes, so it does actually cause the power unit and brakes to run hotter. Teams do try to counteract this by increasing the size of those intakes, but without trying to impact the performance. There's just so much to think about when it comes to altitude, but let's move on to tyres. So Pirelli will bring the C3, C4, C5 as the hard, medium, soft, which are one step softer than last year. The energy demands on the tyres are fairly low at this circuit. We will probably see high track evolution like we did last year. Okay, so this is Sergio Perez's home race. Last year's winner here was Max Verstappen. Who do you think will claim victory at the 2023 Mexican Grand Prix?